Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to all of our councillors, our council staff, members of the public who've joined us for the first time since we've been in quarantine. I want to ask the gathering if it would be upstanding whilst Councillor Hungerford provides an acknowledgement to the Traditional Custodians. Thank you to Councillor Hungerford.
Start by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the Sunshine Coast local government area. We recognise that these have always been places of cultural, spiritual and social and economic significance. The traditional custodians' unique values and ancient and enduring cultures deepen and enrich the life of our community. We commit to working in partnership with the traditional custodians and the broader First Nations, Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander community to support self-determination through economic and community development. Truth-telling is a significant part of our journey. We are committed to better understanding the collective history of the Sunshine Coast and the experiences of the First Nations people. Legacy issues resulting from colonisation are still experienced by traditional custodians and First Nations people. We recognise our shared history and will continue to work in partnership to provide a foundation for building a shared future with the Kabi Kabi people and the Jindabara people. We wish to pay respect to their elders, past, present and emerging, and acknowledge this important role First Nations people continue to play within the Sunshine Coast community. Together we are all stronger. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hungerford. Please remain upstanding, and I would just remind you that this is the beginning of Reconciliation Week, and the Indigenous and the Torres Strait Islander flag will be flying from the flagpoles at Caloundra and Nambour. I'd now like to invite Pastor Donnie Johnson from the Kawana Baptist Church to read the opening prayer. Thank you, Pastor Donnie.
Just before I pray, can I say two things, Mr. Mayor?
Please.
Just want to acknowledge all your hard work and very much thank you to all the staff. Every time I ring through or talk to any of the councillors, I get greeted like I'm someone you like. So thank you very much. I appreciate that. The second one is, as pastors, we consider this an incredible opportunity and an honour to be invited here to pray with you and on your behalf. So thank you for letting us do this. I appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Let me pray. Father God, thank you for this time. And Father, I lay this time before you. I ask that this meeting would be an incredible meeting, that great decisions would be made through wisdom and discernment. I pray that you would help each and every person in everything they have to do, from talking to speaking to stopping and thinking and weighing up the decisions. Father, at this time also I want to pray for our greater community. Father, for the homeless, for areas of domestic violence. Father, for families, for, Lord, all the things that are happening across our coast, for small business, Lord God, for suicide. We ask, Lord God, that you would give us wisdom and discernment on how to best help and support our greater community. Thank you again for this time, and may you lead us. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Amen.
Thank you.
Thank you, Pastor Donnie. Please be seated. Councillors, I have one apology today for Councillor Johnston. And I'd also like the opportunity to welcome Heidi Roberts, our newly commenced Group Executive of Business Performance. And I might just throw to the Chief Executive for a brief introduction. Thank you, Emma.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and good morning, councillors. I'm really delighted to have Heidi join our team here at Council as our Group Executive for Business Performance. Heidi's joined us with great enthusiasm from the state government, where she was most recently the Executive Director of Water for Department of Regional Development, Manufacturing and Water. So has had a lot of experience throughout all of her executive roles throughout government. Brings an enormous wealth of skills in policy development, in managing large groups of people. But what really is very important to us in our leadership team is Heidi's passion for leadership, her passion for kindness, her passion for really being part of a team that serves the people of the Sunshine Coast. I know she's very excited to be moving up here to the Sunshine Coast region, and we look forward to welcoming Heidi as part of our team, so thank you very much.
Well done. Welcome, Heidi. The minutes of the ordinary meeting held on 29 April 2021 have been received and confirmed. Someone happy to move? Councillor Dixon. Another seconder. Councillor Natoli. Thank you. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. There is no mayoral minute. Item 6, councillors, I'd like to draw to your attention that on 12 October 2020, amendments to the Local Government Act 2009 and Local Government Regulation 2012 came into force. The amendments include the new Chapter 5B, which sets out new legislative requirements for dealing with councillors' conflicts of interest in local government matters. These arrangements will apply to how we manage such matters at this meeting, and I would remind you that should you have a prescribed conflict of interest or a declarable conflict of interest, you bring that to the Chamber's attention prior to the item. So we'll get on to the meeting proper. There are no presentations or councillor reports. Item 8.1 is the quarterly progress report for Q3, which will be presented initially by the CEO and then by ELT. Yes, and if any of the portfolio chairs wish to raise any matters or questions, please do so. Over to you, Madam CEO.
Sure. Morning, councillors again. This week marks my 6 months in the role. I know, and some days I feel like I've only been here for a few seconds, and other days I feel like I've been here a lifetime. But every day I learn a lot and appreciate the incredible diversity and the depth of experience and talent that we have across council who are serving our community. So our quarterly report continues to highlight the developments and that big body of work that is being formed. Our corporate plan, 2021 to 2025, continues to contain our vision for the future of being healthy, smart and creative and Australia's most sustainable region, and was adopted at our ordinary meeting in February of this year. That plan sets the blueprint to guide our decisions, to help us form strategies, goals, pathways over the next 5 years. So it's very important that we have that plan set in place. Following on from that, one of the other really big occasions for me was the approval and the endorsement, the resolution by Council of our community engagement. There is so much conversation that we have to have with our community. We are sometimes criticised for having too much engagement, but our community engagement policy will allow us to really move with great intent, with great purpose, and build that very important trust with our community. And that was adopted at the ordinary meeting in March of this year. The more we can have that authentic, meaningful conversation with our community, the better we can do our roles and our jobs for our community. Some of our other notable milestones, we endorsed the Innovate Reconciliation Action Plan, and we'll continue to support and develop and sustain our reconciliation outcomes for our First Nations people within our community. We also we resolved to prepare a planning scheme for the Sunshine Coast. We understand that the planning scheme is going to be very, very important to our future development and underpins so much of what we do. And so for Council to resolve that was a very big moment in the last quarter. Finally, we continue to adopt and be flexible to COVID and the things that are going on at the moment. We're very mindful of our friends and colleagues in Melbourne, Greater Victoria at the moment. But I'd like to thank all of our team, all of the community who continue to observe very good protocols and keep our Sunshine Coast region very safe. There's a number of things in the report to highlight and identify, and I don't want to steal all of that limelight, so I'd like to hand over to my colleagues in the executive team, and starting with Warren Bunker. Thanks, Warren.
We're just running through three items. The capital program at the end of the quarter was slightly below where our expectations of our targets were, but the team is working very hard and will continue to work very hard through this time frame to get to our target of over 90% by year end. It's been due to a little bit of wet weather, some availability of materials, and also we've added a number of the grant programs on board, but I feel fairly comfortable that the team's working very hard across the whole of Council to progress it. Secondly, we progressed during this quarter the finalisation of the draft options analysis documentation in relation to the mass transit. It's currently on public display. I'd encourage anybody in the community to really get on board, have a look. We're really keen to hear your views during this time. And in terms of the environment area, we saw that the Environment Livability Strategy 2017 and actually the implementation program that continued for the next 3 to 4 years was awarded the 2020 Banksia Sustainability Award for the government category. This is a significant achievement as the Banksia Awards is one of the longest running sustainability awards globally and regarded as Australia's most prestigious sustainability awards. We also commenced the First Nations Fire Management Program, working with our traditional owners to actually progress different ways of looking at some of our fire management for some of our reserve areas across our areas. And also we had two specific days. One was Clean Up Australia Day, where over 1,400 registered volunteers cleaned up around about 207 wheelie bins of rubbish and litter. A really great achievement in relation to looking after our environment through that process. And a similar Clean Up for Hatchlings Day saw over 495 kilos of rubbish picked up along our beaches and our waterways to actually improve our beach line, particularly for the upcoming hatchlings through this process. So I'd like to pass over to Greg Laverty.
Through you, Mr Chair, during the quarter, the Economic Resurgence Task Force focused on three key areas, that being business confidence, digital upskilling and supply chain support. There were a range of programs and workshops undertaken by Council in conjunction with TAFE. The Building Better Business program was undertaken, and there were a range of other workshops and learning activities that were available for local businesses across IP law, trademarking, resilient businesses and a range of other matters. The Local Business Champion series continued with a range of local leaders profiling their success stories to help underpin that business confidence. We also undertake a Jobs Now campaign because there are a number of businesses and industry sectors that are struggling to actually fill jobs at the moment, so we've been very supportive in that space as well. The Study Sunshine Coast program continued to regain momentum with 445 domestic and international students using that service. Some of the programs included the Global Citizen Scholarship, which is a program to increase competency in relation to those students working, studying and living across a variety of cultures. In addition, the Talent Essentials program was undertaken, which is about helping those students transition from study to employment by focusing on things like applications, interview skills and LinkedIn profile development. In relation to the community, strong community area, there was certainly a lot of achievements in the quarter, and certainly in that area we ticked all the boxes in relation to our vision of healthy, smart and creative. So the Healthy Sunshine Coast program recommenced with the Choose to Move program, which offers a range of activities for locals that are either free or at low cost that are available in local parks and other community venues. We also partnered with the University of the Sunshine Coast in an ageing seminar, and there were over 150 participants at the university, with the theme being Getting Old is Not a Disease. In addition to these programs, there was a wide range of sporting amenities and facilities that were upgraded across the coast. These included the Caloundra Indoor Stadium, the Sunshine Coast Hockey facilities, the Coolum Tennis Club, the Coolum Netball, the North Shore Sporting Complex and the Nambour Showground as well. From a smart perspective, there was a lot of work gone into presenting a number of documents to Council which were adopted during the quarter. These include the Honey Farm Road Sporting Complex Master Plan, includes the Innovate Reconciliation Action Plan, our Heritage Plan and also our Community Engagement Policy and Framework. From a creative perspective, there were a number of programs. There was an artist-led development program known as The Path, where there were 161 applicants, of which 11 were chosen to undertake that 4-part program, which includes a range of things, including one-on-one mentoring. During the quarter, the Refinery Creative Incubator program also started. There were more than 50 applications for that, of which 25 were selected to undertake the boot camp style program. The Caloundra Regional Gallery profiled 48 local artists and importantly 30 young artists to more than 2,600 visitors during the quarter. And if that wasn't enough, there was almost $500,000 in community grants that were allocated to 209 community organisations. And while on average $2,500 isn't a lot, to those community organisations, sometimes those small amount of dollars make a significant difference. They are very grateful for that support, and we're also very grateful for their support because those community organisations underpin the fabric of our community. So thank you, Mr Mayor and Councillors, and I welcome Tom Jamieson to the lectern.
Good morning, through you, Mayor, Councillors, Madam Chair, Executives. Good morning. I'd just like to give a short update on the transportation aspects within the strong community portfolio. Again, our thanks goes to the Deputy Mayor for his strong advocacy and support for this crucial portfolio. And in the quarter, a significant amount of work has been delivered throughout Council for our community. Some of the key highlights I'd just like to cover off now. The construction of the 4-laning upgrade at Wayland Street was completed with the finalisation of major water main connections, final asphalting surfacings, line markings and signage. The Caloundra Transport Corridor Upgrade Project, a joint Sunshine Coast Council TMR initiative to address congestion on accessing and departing the CBD of Caloundra, is being progressed with concept designs and increased levels of community engagement. The draft stormwater management strategy has commenced community consultation with both industry and community responses being reviewed, and that will be pulled together and submitted to Council shortly. The transport levy expenditure to Q3 sits at a positive 80% and is on target for complete delivery for the year end. This quarter, we also held the Transport Community Reference Group, chaired by the Deputy Mayor, and is a really successful avenue to hear the community, their information, their advice on a broad range and a broad agenda of transportation topics. The Travel Change Behaviour Programme continues to pick up momentum following the COVID impact times. And we're now getting significant engagement with our community and key stakeholders, including DTMR. With regards to on-the-ground initiatives in this space, we've had 4 new active transport maps for the region produced and distributed. The Ride to School initiative has received over 2,500 registrations, the second highest in 4 years, and this is due to be relaunched in term 3. Over 650 customer requests were dealt with alone in the road safety and traffic operations area, and $1 million has been allocated to black spot projects, including signs and lines, markings, road safety and speed improvements. The road resale programme is 85% spent on a $19.6 million budget. And just some of the smaller items that we concentrate on, the pathway grinding works. We have a significant backlog, over 800 orders that has been cleared in the last quarter, so a real achievement by people just on our pathways. And 92 bus stops have been completed to disability standards, a value of $2.5 million. So just some highlights on the transportation sector, and I'd now like to hand over to James for him to talk through service excellence.
Thank you, Tom. Through you, Mr Mayor, councillors. In continuing our drive towards further service excellence for our healthy, smart and creative community, Council's achieved a lot over the quarter 3 for the 2020-2021 year, and that's in line with the leadership provided through the portfolio system with Councillors Winston Johnson and Councillors Christian Dixon. Councillors, despite the impacts of the global pandemic and the COVID-19 situation, development activity and investment confidence in the region has continued strong through Q3. We've seen development application levels exceed those of the quarter for the previous year, the same quarter of the previous year, and a total building value of over $1.5 billion achieved for the region in the year to date. Likewise, building and plumbing applications up by 32% and 37% respectively, which is quite an interesting and good result, showing that the completion of building works is being driven by developer confidence in the region. Additionally, Council has planned sealed over 1,500 additional new release lots, which is a 90% increase on the same time period for the previous year to date. As the CEO had mentioned, councillors, you resolved in January to progress with the drafting of a new planning scheme, and preparation of background and scoping works has commenced through the third quarter to inform the scheme development. Excitingly, commissioning of the first underground high-tech vacuum automated waste system commenced during the end of the third quarter, and that'll see the operation shortly of Australia's first high-tech vacuum waste system and continued rollout across our greenfield site within the Maroochydore CBD. Councillors, over 82,000 customers were serviced during the quarter across our customer contact and development counters, a huge number across multiple channels. We see trends continuing to move towards digital and self-service mechanisms and away from the more traditional face-to-face and phone queries. 80% of those were resolved within first contact. So really good results for customer service in that respect, and 4.41 out of 5 as a score for Council in terms of ease of business. Council conducted over $3.1 million in road resurfacing works from January to March this year, which yielded over 76,000 square metres of rehabilitation works for the safety of our community. In addition, over 1,000 asset condition audits were conducted across the LGA during the quarter, enabling Council to continue its capital asset evaluation and our renewal programs across the region. In addition to that, Council launched our Roads Hub application, building on the development eye and some of the other geospatial applications that we've launched, providing up-to-date information on road hazards, closures, flooding and other information which will allow our community to be aware in real time of conditions affecting their travel and plan ahead for road travel within the region. Last but not least, councillors, I'd just like to make a special mention of the development of a suicide prevention and awareness program that commenced during the third quarter, led by Tom Jamison. The delivery has commenced to our outdoor staff and wider rollout is yet to come. This program acknowledges the critical role that mental health plays in the workplace and will continue to roll this out in subsequent years. Thank you very much.
Thank you, James. Can I have someone move? Oh, sorry, Michael, my apologies. Jumping the gun.
Through you, Mr Mayor, good morning all. In the quarter was $53 million, or 67% of Council's total available spend, purchasing spend, went to local businesses. There were 43 offers of employment made through the quarter. And the Salary Officer's Certified Agreement was certified by the Queensland Industrial Relations Commission, and negotiations continue in relation to the new field-based Certified Agreement, with voting that was held in April. And I can say that there was a 92% yes vote in April, so that was very positive. As mentioned by the CEO, Council adopted its corporate plan in February this year to guide Council's direction and priorities over the next 5 years. There were more than 1,850 people participated in phone interviews and an online survey to inform the development of the corporate plan and provide important insight into the community satisfaction on Council's service delivery. Implementation of the corporate plan has now commenced through the development of the operational plan and the 21-22 budget. With the budget for 21-22, there were budget workshops that were held in the quarter, 4 council budget workshops. And during the quarter, Queensland Treasury Corporation completed their credit review. QTC affirmed Council's credit rating is strong with a negative outlook. This is a key achievement, particularly when viewing the COVID-19 impacts endured by Council. Construction of the Sunshine Coast City Hall continues to progress on schedule. A total of just under 50,000 hours have been worked on site to the end of March, and 524 workers have been inducted to the site. Slab A for the Level 2 was completed on the 29th of March, with formwork and scaffolding for Slab B for Level 2 is underway. and fit-out concept designs have been developed and internal consultation through the organisation has commenced. Thanks, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Michael. Someone like to move the report? Councillor Maria, thank you. Seconder, Councillor Hungerford, thank you. Would you like to open, Councillor?
Thank you, through you, Mr Mayor. Thank you for the report to all of the staff, and thank you for all of the work that the wider team have done over Q3. We mentioned Volunteers Week was held recently, and we had 324 community nature conservation program volunteers who assisted with weed removal. But in addition to that we heard about the Clean Up Australia Day and Clean Up for the Hatchlings. Also great examples of volunteers banding together to make the region a cleaner, healthier place to live. On Tuesday, and I know this falls just outside the quarter, but on Tuesday the catchment group get together, also hosted by council, got volunteers and organisations who focus on our waterways together so that they could collaborate, share ideas and knowledge. And it shouldn't be understated the amount of work that our volunteers do in the region. I just wanted to touch on one thing in the report as well, which was the amenities for high support needs kids and adults. And as a credit to Councillor Cox for ensuring that this was installed in the park in Curramundi. It is having a broad-reaching positive effect, with carers in Division 9 approaching me and asking for similar facilities north of the river. Coolum Tennis Centre hard court upgrades. Any sporting upgrade is well received by that club and its members. But this one I was particularly pleased with because this club provides wheelchair tennis opportunities for people in the region, and the state of the courts was making that near impossible. So the upgrade has made that possible again, and they're happy to provide that facility to all members of all abilities in the public. I'd also like to congratulate those who have received internal promotions and welcome the new staff members. Shout out to the recruitment team, who must be doing something right, because the calibre of staff in our council is very, very high. I think so anyway. The community often come to me and give me compliments about work that the team have done out in the field or when they've had contact with staff over the phone. So I'd like to thank the community who do take that action and notice the good work that council staff do, and it makes my day to be able to pass on those notes to the team. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cyrus. Go to Councillor Hungerford.
Through you, Mr Mayor, there's a lot of highlights in. It's always a pleasure doing these, the quarterly reports. $495,170 in community grants were awarded to 209 applicants. That's investing in our community and our community groups. 1,711 megawatt hours of power was generated from Council's landfill renewable energy facility in Caloundra, reducing greenhouse gas emissions from this site by 20,116 tonnes. I've got to go to the solar farm. Believe it or not, there are still those out there saying it's a failure, a white elephant, losing money. Clearly hasn't been the case for a long time. But I think they work off the assumption that even though it's not correct, if you keep saying it, someone might believe it eventually. But in fact, the solar farm has offset 110% of council's energy consumption. We used to spend $9.6 million a year from memory on electricity. We're not doing that now. In fact, it's earning a profit. But there's some that still try to say it's a failure. Absolutely amazing how they keep doing that. 52.7 million, which represents 67% of council's total available purchasing spend for the quarter, went to our local businesses, supporting our business community as well. 3.1 million was invested in our road network to rehabilitate and resurface. That equates to 9.1 kilometres of road for the quarter, in a program that has a total value of 19.6 million. So up to the 31st of March, over 12.5 million of the program has been spent delivering 41.3 kilometres of roads resealed or rehabilitated across the region. Quite an extensive program. It's improving our assets all the time. And of course, council's received 3 awards for the quarter. We get awards every quarter, just non-stop. Council's innovative pilot project that diverts stormwater to streets was a winner. The Environment and Livability Strategy 2017 was also a winner. And the Sunshine Coast has been recognised as a Smart 21 Community of the Year for the Intelligent Community Forum. All outstanding stuff, and there's many more I could go on with, but our community can be proud of the fact that this council is really delivering. And I look forward to that and congratulate the staff across the organisation, because without them, these things wouldn't happen. We can only set the strategic direction and the resources, but it's the staff that delivers, and I think this is a credit to the staff across the organisations as well. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Hungerford. Councillor O'Prey.
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor, through you, and well done and congratulations, boss, to you and your team. It's some amazing stats. Those numbers, you know, we probably don't bang them from the rooftops enough, to be honest. I think the amazing number of numbers that come through these quarterly reports are something that should be celebrated a little bit more. Just some obvious ones for me, particularly with the economic development portfolio with Councillor Terry. It's not really highlighted too much, but the amount of revenue that we're generating through the holiday parks is extraordinary. It's 4.3 this quarter. It's clearly, and by a mile, I think, our greatest revenue source of business unit of council, and it's something that I think that in the future we should be looking at considering more and more about looking at potentially purchasing or even building more holiday parks, because that revenue source is extraordinary at $4.3 million for the quarter. We also had 11 major events that came to town, and that's a build on the last quarter too, because of the COVID implications. People are understanding that Sunshine Coast is a safe place to host their event, and of those 11 major events, there was about $7.5 million come to town, and that included one of our gold ticket items, which is the Mooloolaba Triathlon. So we had the Mooloolaba Triathlon again for the first time since COVID. One of the other highlights for me, though, was the introduction and the start of the draft stormwater management plan. You've probably heard me bang on a bit about the low-lying land across the North Shore and my division, particularly in areas such as Town of Seaside, Marcoola, Majimba, Urumba. Those areas are very low, and the stormwater systems in there are very old, and it's something that's very important to my community, particularly about seeing this draft stormwater management plan come to fruition. So it's something I'd like to see come even more out of the ground over the next 12 months. The Ride to School initiative, 2,500 kids on their bikes riding to school. I reckon that's a great one. It's a shame I couldn't get involved with it this year. I have done it before, and I love it. It's a great initiative. And also one other thing I want to draw highlight to was the Honey Farm Sports Plan, the Honey Farm Road Sports Plan. We are desperate for more sports facilities on the Sunshine Coast. We're famous for it. We do a really good job of it, and we're probably one of the best regions in Australia, if not the world, at managing our sports facilities. So the instigation and the start of the Honey Farm Road Sports Plan is exceptional. There's one other thing I wanted to put to you, Madam CEO, is about all these numbers and what do they mean. One of the numbers I'd like to see, if we could somehow incorporate it into the quarterly progress report or some other way of delivering this number, is the amount of jobs that these stats are creating in our community. We don't actually see the other side of this. We saw the wonderful results and all that, but we don't see what the actual gains are in our community. The actual gains are jobs. And, you know, we've got major events money going out there, we've got capital works money going out there, we've got all the grants programs money, we've got all this money going out, and it's creating all these jobs, but we're not celebrating that enough either. So perhaps sometime in the future, I don't know how hard or easy it would be, but I'd like to see the sort of numbers that we're generating in our employment for our region. That's all. Well done and congratulations.
Thank you, Councillor O'Prey. Councillor Babarowski.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Councillors, I really think it's so important that we take these pauses. I really enjoy the quarterly reports because we move so fast as a community now. It's important to just take a breath and reflect on what you have achieved. And I think particularly these quarterly reports give the community an opportunity to sort of keep up with what is it that council's actually putting on the ground. That's really important. This is our major mechanism of reporting back to the community on a regular basis, giving them enough detail to really make an assessment of, is this council doing a good job? I would like to think that if you were witness to the reports, both from our CEO and the GEs, you would immediately recognise the dedication and the integrity that they put into those reports. It's a pleasure to hear it. And to some extent, I might have a shot at answering your question, which is, well, all these numbers, what do they mean? I actually think they mean trust and confidence. That's why it's so important to keep reporting at this level with this quality. And if I just pop on my portfolio hat just for a second, I'd just like to amplify a couple of things. One was the Heritage Plan, new 10-year Heritage Plan, 21 to 31. I really liked this plan because it reflected the experience we'd gained in the first one for our region. And what that meant is that we put a much greater focus on the support of the community-run organisations in this region and how we can do that better. So the next 10 years is going to be very exciting and very important for the heritage, because as again we move so fast and change, we need to keep an eye on what it is that we really value from the past, make some judgments about that, and make sure that we preserve and interpret those things as best we can into the future. I also wouldn't mind touching on the travel behaviour change. Now the initiatives were great, but in that quarter what I witnessed was a great progress on our 5-year program. We're in the first year of developing a 5-year program, travel behaviour change management. And it means as a region we are doing some really innovative work in understanding why people travel in the way that they do. And why would they consider to change from their private vehicle or one mode of transport into another? We're taking that very seriously. So again, I think a very commendable progress in this quarter. I wouldn't mind again reinforcing the Roads Hub. Look, a brilliant piece of software. If you've not engaged with Development I, you should. It's an amazingly good piece of software. But Roads Hub is another really good example of how we're learning to do this online engagement and interactive software really well. And perhaps finally, I wouldn't mind acknowledging again that we started our 2021 prescribed burn as a council season. We all learned the most important lesson out of the fire season and the terrible fires that ravaged Australia, that vegetation management was the most important lesson we should learn. And as a council, we have, I think, commenced our prescribed burn program to do the best we can as a council, but it does remind us that we really need to hold our state colleagues and any other agencies involved in making sure that we've just had a very wet season. There's a lot of fuel load being increased into the vegetated areas. We're going to need to take that very seriously during this winter period. But we're showing a lead in our prescribed burn program. So councillors, I think we should be very pleased as a council that we are helping our community to understand what we do, and I certainly will be supporting the recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Babarowski. Councillor Cox.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Firstly, through to the CEO, I've got a couple of things. Congratulations on 6 months in the role. That's 2 quarterly reports down, and obviously many more to come. So congratulations on that. I wanted to touch on staff commitment. And I know Councillor Suarez mentioned it earlier about the recruitment process and how we've got some really quality officers amongst council. But I just wanted to personally thank yourself and the ELT for driving this real commitment that we have to our community. And I just wanted to touch on one thing that you will need to be probably mindful of as we move forward, because we have quite an ambitious capital works program, and trying to meet those targets as we approach the end of the financial year comes with its challenges, wet weather and the like. But this year especially, we've received a lot of additional stimulus money from the other tiers of government, both state and federal, and they want to see that added into the program. And I was recently, probably about a month or so ago, I was talking with one of our field workers, and exceptional officer, but I'm a bit fearful some of our staff are sort of overworking themselves. He's currently doing about 10 to 12 hours a day, so just to try and meet the targets that we've put in place. And I'm just sort of mindful that we will be exposing ourselves to a bit of burnout. So I'd just like to convey that back through to the group executives and yourself, just to be very mindful of that, because it is a big program. We have got those ambitious targets, but we still need to be looking after our staff. So With that being said, they are doing an exceptional job, and I just want to commend them. And if you could please thank the organisation for the work that they do on behalf of our community, that'd be appreciated.
Thank you, Councillor Cox. Councillor Natali.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Madam CEO, for your leadership and the leadership of our senior executives and all the way through our organisation, the tremendous work that our officers do. And I'll take on board what Councillor Cox said. I'm hearing from industry that this is happening in just about every industry that's involved in the construction rollout. There's stress, it's difficult to find experienced people to come to their organisations, it's difficult to keep them, and they're offering so much overtime just to be able to keep up with the workload. So private industry, local government, we're all under pressure, and unfortunately when that happens, we will see cracks appear. There were a number of councillors who spoke, as well as the ELT, spoke about the volunteers and the tremendous contributions our volunteers make. And I just want to highlight the fact that this weekend, Volunteer Sunshine Coast actually celebrate Volunteer of the Year Awards at the Innovation Centre. And it's great to be able to recognise those volunteers and the enormous amount of work that they do and contribute to our organisations. Many of the councillors may be aware of the struggles that both organisations like Volunteer Sunshine Coast are having at the moment with the federal government funding basically coming to an end. I want to thank Ted O'Brien, who has been able to find a gap at 12 months, because I feared that if that didn't happen with that funding, if it was to end at the end of this financial year, that organisation would fold. And we would be much worse off. And I really urge you, Madam CEO, to look at how we as a council value that organisation and their ability to be able to deliver the conduits into our community and be able to ensure that those people in our community that do want to give their time are able to find the right passion within the community and contribute tremendously. And I'm just always blown away and amazed at how much they do. And I often think if they weren't there, how governments would struggle to be able to keep up with that deficiency if it was ever to happen. I just want to highlight one other thing. My division, I don't often stand up and grandstand about things that happen, but I'm really quite proud of this because I don't have many sporting fields. In fact, I only have one sporting field in my division. But it was just great that when I came into council, there was a problem with funding and there was insufficient funding to be able to finish the female change rooms at the Mauritius Swans. And I was happy that that funding was able to go with council's grants and state government grants as well. So we, the Mayor and myself, were there. Great day to see that on the Sunshine Coast, female sports now have facilities equal to those of males. And I think I can say that 100% of my sporting fields meet that very high level. And I know that that's an ambition that we have, and every council would have, to be able to continue to roll out and support female sport within our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Natali. Before I go to Councillor Suarez to close, I too would just like to acknowledge the great leadership provided by our Chief Executive, by our executive leadership team, and by the efforts of all of our staff right across the organisation and the tremendous job they're doing, during what can only be described as some unusual times. There's a couple of numbers, however, I'd like to perhaps get some more detail on, and this can be provided later if necessary. And Councillor Hungerford highlighted that 67% of our procurement spend, about 52.7 million, had been spent with local businesses. And Council, you'll recall we took a decision during the pandemic that we would increase the opportunity for expenditure with local businesses because we appreciated the multiplier effect that had in our local community. And whilst 67% is a great number, it's not quite where we wanted to be. So I'd just be keen for that to be considered. And I appreciate there are a range of anomalies going on in terms of resourcing, both human resources and building resources, for instance. So that may well be the answer, but it's about $2.5 million that would have a considerable multiplier effect around our economy. And the other question relates to the Economic Resurgence Task Force and how we're doing about, where's Greg? Can't see him. Sorry, around the corner. Sorry, no wonder I couldn't see you. How we're measuring new employment opportunities and or new businesses that are establishing on the back of the efforts Council is providing in terms of leadership through Councillor O'Prey and Councillor Landsberg and our economic development team. So if I could get an update on those at some stage, I'd be grateful. Rightio, I'll go to Councillor Suarez to close. No need to close, enough been said. We'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Thank you very much, councillors and team. We'll move on to the next item, a very important item. 8.2 is our Coastal Hazard Adaptation Strategy. I invite Dr. Dave Moore and Gillian Smith to present, and I also want to acknowledge our special guests joining us today, Dr. Steve Scull and Professor John Martin, who have played a critical role in this program and many others with Council in helping us manage our coastline. So over to you, Dr. Dave.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Good morning, councillors. The purpose of this report is to present to you the final Coastal Hazard Adaptation Strategy for your consideration and adoption. Our coastal environments contribute significantly to our identity and lifestyles. Locals and tourists continue to admire the coastal landscapes and access the coastal environment to enjoy various activities. The coast is critical for the tourism industry, which is a significant part of our regional economy. Council's long-term strategic directions for the coast are outlined in our Environment and Livability Strategy, which includes a key policy position that coastal hazard risks are known and avoided or otherwise adequately addressed, forming part of long-term adaptation planning. Coastal hazards, which include coastal erosion, storm tide inundation due to sea level rise, and inundation due to sea level rise, have the potential to impact on both the natural and built environments and the livability of the Sunshine Coast. The preparation of this Coastal Hazard Adaptation Strategy fulfills a significant part of the Being Prepared transformational action of the ELS, which seeks to proactively plan for the potential impacts of climate change and natural hazards to build the resilience of the region. The development of the CHAS has been supported by the State Government's QCoast 2100 program, an initiative to facilitate the consistent development of these type of documents by each coastal council across Queensland. A coastal hazard adaptation strategy is not a statutory document, but once finalised, will assist to guide and adjust our coastal management measures over time by providing a fit-for-purpose assessment of the social, cultural, economic and environmental risks associated with both current and future coastal hazards. As well as addressing risk, the project also provides a change management process as we collectively respond, plan for and adapt to the disruption and changing circumstances associated with coastal hazards and a changing climate. The CHAS will proactively inform planning and policy, asset and infrastructure design, project delivery, governance processes and financial management to ensure the impacts to our natural and built environments and the livability of the Sunshine Coast are minimised, a key part of achieving a climate resilient community. Regular monitoring and reporting will assist us to identify localised impacts, environmental change and progress on our implementation. The CHAS has involved a comprehensive assessment, including quantified coastal hazards and the emerging risk over multiple planning horizons, present day, 2041, 2070 and 2100. And we've also worked closely with our utility partners and assessed over 850,000 of their data features. And for us, we've looked at over 600,000 council asset features across a number of different classes. Everyone has a stake in the coast. Therefore, community engagement has been a fundamental component of the strategy development process and underpins the elements of co-design for coastal hazard adaptation and the shared responsibility in responding to the emerging coastal hazard risk. Through a number of separate but linked engagement processes, we have worked to collectively understand what the community values about the coast, share information about coastal hazards, explore what makes a resilient coast, and sought feedback to inform the various adaptation options. Engagement has been comprehensive and has included social media, a project-specific webpage, and direct engagement via face-to-face and online. An important component of the engagement has been an 18-member community advisory group, which is independently chaired by Dr. John Martin, who joins us here today, and we thank John for his contributions in that role. The CAG has guided the development of the CHAS to ensure community views and ideas were incorporated into the document. I'd also like to acknowledge the work of Dr. Steve Scull and his Alluvium team, our consultants, who have worked closely with the council team to deliver the product that we have today. As a result of our community engagement, there was overwhelming support for the aim and intent of the strategy. There was a strong preference to maintain and enhance natural processes as far as possible as a primary adaptation response. Our community wants to see the strategy implemented with tangible on-ground outcomes, ensure decisions are based on the best available science, and assessment of risk was seen as particularly important in light of updated sea level rise projections. Our community loves their coastal areas and they're keen to be involved further, not only via the provision of information, but actively participating in coastal management and monitoring activities, and an emphasis on the importance of monitoring and regular reporting to ensure we're on track and making sure we're making the necessary adjustments in a timely way. The final strategy is presented in 3 parts, including a tailored coastal hazard adaptation approach, reflecting community values and providing greater insight on the emerging coastal hazard risks, new coastal hazard mapping, which will be referred to by the state, supporting information presented in a series of fact sheets, a rolling 5-year implementation plan incorporating a combination of regional and location-specific actions to support greater coastal resilience. This finalisation of the strategy represents the start of an ongoing process of planned adaptation over time and demonstrates Council's strong leadership and the key role it has in ensuring our coastal environments are healthy, that coastal public assets are appropriately managed and maintained to enable ongoing functionality and accessibility. The necessary preparations are undertaken to actively respond to and meet the needs and expectations of both current and future Sunshine Coast communities as we proactively respond to climate change, and also to assist and empower our community and stakeholders to proactively manage coastal hazard impacts on their own land for their own assets in accord with the strategy and in consultation with Council. Mr Mayor and Councillors, this morning we are seeking your adoption of the Sunshine Coast Coastal Hazard Adaptation Strategy. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Dave. Someone prepared to move? Councillor Suarez, thank you. Seconder, Councillor Natali. Oh, sorry, can I go to Councillor Cox as a portfolio councillor? Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Natali. Would you like to open, please, Councillor Suarez?
Thank you, through you, Mr Mayor. We are really fortunate here on the Sunshine Coast. I know we had a community forum just recently, and one of the themes that came out of that was no matter who you talk to, no one here that I've ever met has said they don't like living here on the Sunshine Coast. And I think our coastline and our hinterland are pivotal to that. And we do have some of the most beautiful coastline of the mainland. So the work undertaken to prepare this document enables Council and the community to plan and prepare for storm tide, coastal erosion and sea level rise resulting from climate change. And planning is critical. It would be ignorant to refuse to acknowledge that climate change will affect our coastline. So ignorance is not an option. By trying to understand what the future exposure to the risks of inundation, storm tides and coastal erosion will be for the Sunshine Coast, Council has prepared informed, coordinated and timely actions over the medium and long term in an attempt to reduce these future risks. Thank you to the team and to Dr. Dave and Professor John who did the majority of the work, and what a load of work that has been. I'd also like to thank the community for their participation and in particular the Community Advisory Group members for their time and energy to make valuable contributions to the strategy. I'd also like to thank the State Government and LGAQ who supported the process through the QCoast 2100 program. I think collective thinking was critical to our overall strategy. I look forward to the debate. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Suarez. Councillor O'Prey.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Again, well done and congratulations. I remember our first task force meeting in Nambour Chambers, and we were bantering around how we're going to tackle this on a number of years ago. And with that, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to also acknowledge Councillor Tim Dwyer, who was part of that, and also Councillor Jenny Mackay, who was also part of that in the very early days. They made a contributing effort in the early start to the Chaz. This is our greatest risk to our region, I believe, Mr. Mayor. It's not traffic movements, it's not our economy, it's not a pandemic, it's about storm tide inundation and flooding across our region. That is, I believe, our singular greatest risk to our region in the next 100 years. And I'm absolutely so proud to be a part of this in my small way, to bring this to fruition. It's the coastline, the waterways, our rivers, our beaches, our canal systems, our lakes, everything that's about the coast is the spine of our Sunshine Coast. It's actually in our name, Sunshine Coast, and that's what it's all about. And to have this here before us today is exceptional. It's our greatest natural asset. This is more than just an adaptation strategy for me. This is about planning, and it's about planning for the future. We have planning schemes, we have plans for all different things for our council, but this strategy that we're putting together is really about planning for the safety of our great-grandchildren, because I reckon in about 100 years this is when this is going to really come into effect. This is a real strategy, a real genuine effort at putting everything forward and having an understanding of it so that we can improve on it as the years and the decades go by. And you know, the effort that the staff have put into this, with the knowledge and understanding of how important it is to our region, has been exceptional. So, Mr. Mayor, I'm 100% going to support this today, and I thank you very much for putting it together. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor O'Prey. Councillor Cox.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, firstly, I would also like to thank various members of our community, as well as our project control group, and just want to especially thank Dr. Moore, Gillian, Gary, Bill, and the like. This has been 3 years of your life taken up with the preparation of this strategy. So, and whilst we're here, we've got Dr. Scull over there, who was part of the consultancy team, and Alyssa obviously has now moved on, and our Professor Martin, who's been the independent chair of the Community Advisory Group. So there's been great involvement from not only internal staff, but the external community and those independent experts to bringing this document together. And I just want to sort of say that we've had 3 separate rounds of community engagement over the last probably 18 months. And I know you flicked through it very quickly, Dr. Dave, during your presentation, but I just want to remind the community that there were 2,450 face-to-face discussions. There was about 1,250 survey responses. There was about 50 plus external focus briefings, and they're to specific sort of groups that had a specific interest in them, as well as about 8,100 visits to the project website. That to me is what this document embodies. Not just our sort of take on things, but it's getting the community to understand the need for this strategy, because we're talking about a long-term vision. 80 years, that's a bloody long time. And so we need to ensure that our community understands exactly what's going to be occurring as these identified risks and hazards are formulated. And we need to have a response. We need to have a plan, as Councillor O'Prey said. This is all about having a plan. So I know that it identifies council's roles and responsibilities. That's really important, because a lot of the community think that council's responsible for everything. Well, yes, we're responsible for certain items, and we will do our best to make sure that they're monitored, maintained, prepared, then mitigated, and then transitioned if required. So it's really important that our community understands that not everything falls onto council in terms of responsibility, and that's one of the things that I really like about this particular strategy. The other thing I just wanted to touch on quite briefly is that we know that it's got those three parts, and part C is a 5-year implementation plan. That to me is where the community sort of understands that, yes, whilst we're talking about an 80-year strategy, we are breaking it down into chunks, and that 5-year implementation plan really sort of starts the preparation and the groundwork for what lays ahead in the short to medium term. So I just want to say, well done. This has been a massive achievement. I think we're one of only a handful of councils to have actually completed, yet to endorse it. Hopefully today it gets endorsed, and then obviously the state government gets their endorsement through the QCOS program. But what an achievement, and well done to the team, because the community, I think, will be very, very proud of the work that we have done in tackling this important issue. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cox. Councillor Natali.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Before I open, I'd like to ask a question. Page 56, it talks about critical dates, and it says that after hopefully council will adopt the strategy, we'll go to the state government for endorsement. I'm just wondering, what is the anticipated time frame for that to happen?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Natoli, subject to the outcome of today's meeting, we would look to submit the final CHAS, the public-facing CHAS, to the QCOS 2100 program. We've been keeping them up to date on where we're at, and the timing fits quite well with them. So I would like to think early in the new financial year we would have an endorsed coastal hazard adaptation strategy.
That's great. Thank you for that. I want to also congratulate the enormous work that you've done, and I do want to acknowledge Dr. Steve Scull, because Dr. Steve Scull was involved with Richie Shire in my time, and I had great confidence in his ability, and fantastic when I found out that he was involved in this project. It's so important that we actually understand what climate change means, not just to our community, but to the entire world. I mean, we've got scientists for the last 20 odd years been trying to anticipate what levels seas are going to rise and what factors could accelerate that or worsen the situation. We don't know whether it's going to be 0.8, 1.1 or 1.2, or could it be even greater than that? And here we are trying to predict what could happen in the next 80 years, let alone, knowing that some of these factors could still be accelerated and could make things. So it's a chasing beast all the time. And it was interesting. I went to the Quina Islands Residents Association Community Day on Sunday, and got to meet one of the members who was leaving the executive, and their reason for moving from Quina Island to Buderim was purely because of climate change. Their fear that climate change will impact their waterfront property. And when I thought about my division, pretty much has a lot of our residential community living right at the coalface. When you think of the river, the ocean, and the canals in Division 4, there's a substantial number of people who live in a very high threat area if we're ever subjected to major storms, severity of storms. And so this is really important for not only my division, my community, but for communities right along the coast of Australia and around the world. Look at some of the poorer nations, some of the Pacific Islands, and predictions that they'll end up going underwater. It's scary to think what could possibly happen. And just listening to comments last night, the hydrogen conference that's happening in Canberra at the moment, where the world is accelerating, taking opportunities, I think, of trying to reduce our carbon emissions so that we can ensure that the climate the world doesn't heat up to the magnitude of 2 degrees that we hope that we would never reach. So, for me, one of the more apparent issues for us, when we talk about an 80-year horizon, we can talk about what it could look like then. But for the immediate, my community's obviously been heavily involved in the public consultation. I know that Skeg has, I know Jim Cash, a former councillor of Mauritius Shire, great knowledge that he has and possesses in terms of our beaches, our waterways, and really value his contributions and the engagement that I've had with him and been able to engage our officers with him. The groups like Beach Matters who have come on board in the last 12 months have really signalled their desire to make sure that our beaches, our coastal, our dural systems are maintained and maintained to a very high standard. When you think about the environment, the livability environment strategies and consultation...
Councillor, do you need an extension?
Yes, please.
Can I have someone move, please? Councillor Babarowski, thank you. I second that. Councillor Suarez, those in favour? Let's carry on, please.
That our community value our beaches and our waterways, it's right up there. And I think, you know, they are the playgrounds for our community, not just for us, our visitors and so forth. They're an incredible economic driver as well. And I think we've seen enormous value placed on maintaining our beaches. And of course, with coastal rising sea levels, erosion, our defences in terms of maintaining that, it's very clear that any of those hard infrastructures that could impact our beaches is something that our community wants us to think very carefully before we actually trigger any action. Alex in particular, the community there is watching very much about the preliminary approvals to put a seawall in there. And, you know, as much as they understand that it may have to go in, they're saying that they would actually prefer it to be pushed back so that it doesn't impact on the beach down there. Jim has made it very clear that he believes that the sand sourcing study that's been around for a number of years, and council sort of had that we should be accelerating some of the actions. I note that in the comments in response to his questions, that they talk about that many of these are in the latter part, you know, in years to come, and he fears that that might be too late and would like to see an acceleration. And I'm hoping that in future budgets, council will get a better understanding of what we possibly could do. I know we've got some initial studies and work that we're going to do that hopefully will inform that, but at some point, having a 50-metre buffer on our beaches gives us the greatest protection in terms of any storm impacts that we could have. And hopefully if we can do that, and it's very clear that the public consultation said that they would prefer natural solutions than hard-edged solutions, and I would employ council to be really focused on what our community have said. And that might mean that we may have to bring some of that work forward to enable us to be able to deliver on the expectations and the feedback and the vision that our community has in regards to this strategy. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Natali. Councillor Law.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. I just have a couple of questions, if I may, first of all. And with the overall CHAS, we've got a 5-year rolling implementation plan. What I haven't found is a sort of a hard date where we review the whole plan and really have to re-examine and maybe not go through the same process again that you've just gone through in the last 3 years, but when's that hard review date, given how much the data and the information is changing from IPCC? We're currently at 0.8, we're going to 1.1 perhaps. So we're waiting for those types of things, but what's that hard review date of the overall strategy?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. The strategy has a 10-year life. However, saying that, we recognise there may be a number of trigger points dependent on what information is available. In terms of having a 5-year rolling implementation plan, that gives us the opportunity to sort of set out, this is what we're looking to achieve. Did we achieve that? What outcomes did we deliver? Do we need to do more? And help us as an organisation and a council to move forward to ensure we are responding to the challenges and looking to see what we may have to adjust moving forward.
Thank you. And no, with a 5-year rolling implementation plan, I find that a very positive way to go. It helps us stay contemporary with the changing environment around us. The other question I have is around the maps that are in Appendix B. One of our requirements is to provide really clear and the best information we can to the community so they can make their decisions. I found it difficult with what are the assumptions underlying the maps, and have we got that as clear as we can, or will that be something that we can get better clarity around?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Subject to the outcome of today's meeting, we will look to make sure that this information is publicly available on Council's website. We have provided that mapping previously through the consultation period in an interactive format, and some of the feedback we've received, there were challenges there in understanding how to navigate around that webpage. So we'll be looking to see how best we can present that and include some of the additional information to help people understand what the maps are and how they were formed.
Okay, thank you. My last question is around the use and the data we're using around storm surges. So as I've read through the information, it appears that we're sort of talking about a 1.3 metre storm surge that would come on top of highest astronomical tides. And the reason that I've sort of noticed and wonder around that is cyclonic activity and can create storm surges of 1.5 metres and possibly more. And when we look into the future, we may find that we will get more and more cyclones coming our way. That's yet to be seen. Depends what happens with our climate. But can you give some feedback around is it 1.3, 1.5, or how are we treating storm surges, particularly in the light of a cyclonic storm surge?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'll try and respond to that. I guess storm tide surges are one of the hazards that we have identified. We've used the best available science to help inform what those levels are, and it's also working with our other experts across council, looking at flooding and stormwater as well. So what is in there, I guess, is the best estimate at this point in time, and what the CHAS does is sort of says these are the areas which could be impacted, and therefore what do we need to be aware of and how to respond. But that probably is, I guess, ongoing adjustments and understanding as new data becomes available.
Okay. Thank you very much. And it's something that I'm sure is going to need to continue through that rolling plan, always be updated. So that's a great tool. If I might just briefly, Mr. Mayor, talk to the motion. Very well done, as the other speakers have said. An amazing piece of work over a long period of time. But I really just want to focus on that community engagement that you've done, where you've really shown some great tools and opportunities that can happen when we engage well with the community. So congratulations for that. And I really think we've started some of that education and knowledge sharing that's in the 5-year plan. That has already started through the whole consultation process. So I think it will be quite an easy transition into the education and knowledge sharing that must come next through the 5-year rolling plan. So truly brilliant. I will of course be supporting the plan, but just want to note that this is about hazard adaptation. There is a whole nother huge piece of work we need to do about reducing the hazards that's led to this situation. Through our climate change, we're aware and we know that there's a lot of sea level rise is going to happen because it's already locked into the system. So we've got a lot of work to do to try and reduce the hazard that we know is coming. So I fully support what we're doing to protect what we've got, but I'm also looking forward to a huge piece of work that needs to be done to try and do something to slow down the climate warning, the climate change that is already underway and locked in. But what can we do so that when we get to that review in 40 years' time, 2041, when the next group of people in this room are looking at it, they may be able to see some evidence of the global warming slowing down. That might be too optimistic. It depends what we do in the next 10 years. But thank you for everything you've done and fully support the endorsement of the CHAS today.
Thank you, Councillor Law. Councillor Babarowski.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillors, I certainly enthusiastically rise to support today's recommendations on a very, very important strategy. I think we, through all of the conversations so far, recognise that one of our important roles as community representatives is to have really good antennas to the sentiment of the community. And it is my observation that I think their wish for us to understand how we manage these hazards into the future is absolutely paramount, as I think numbers of councillors have said. What I really appreciate is that I'm part of a region and part of a council that has the resources to do that at a level of intelligence and commitment, which means that we can really learn how to manage this amazingly complex and challenging phenomena. It does remind us that you can't manage what you don't understand. And the phenomena behind this strategy, which is of course fundamentally the phenomena of climate change, are incredibly confronting. If ever I doubt that I need to take this as seriously as I do, I remind myself by getting the world population clock up, and I just look at it for a while. And it reminds me that even in my lifetime, as relatively brief as that is, it has gone from 2.8 billion to almost 7.9 billion people in my lifetime. 5 billion more people. And that just gives you an insight into the complexity of our impacts. And we should not doubt our impacts. And there is no cavalry coming. We are the guardians of the planet. So it is absolutely our responsibility to invest in understanding how we both understand the meta problems of climate change and then how that translates into strategies. What I really appreciate with this, having read through it, is one, we commissioned our own background research. Love that, but I'm so proud that we have the capacity to do that as a region. Because you have to have some real confidence in those findings, but you also have to keep challenging the scientific assumptions underneath it. I love the phrase best available science because it essentially implicit reminds us that's changing. And if we don't completely understand the phenomena, which we don't, and we understand that there's some major ice plates that we're trying to our best to understand right now, if they melt at an accelerated rate, which we're beginning to invest heavily in, then we will need to understand that really rapidly. So I commend the team for the dedication you've shown over a number of years. Absolutely fantastic, but a genuine reflection of what this community expects. We cannot put our hands on our heart and be the most sustainable region in Australia, healthy, smart and creative, if we don't do these investments, if we don't take these things seriously. I love that we do. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Babarowski. There are no further speakers, so I'll go to Councillor Suarez to close.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was hoping a question might have arisen during the debate, so I'll ask it myself. I know, I've read the document and I know that the information's in there, but just for the broader community, one of the questions that I get asked is how will the CHAS, which is a non-statutory document, shape some of our other policy documents and particular land use planning? If you wouldn't mind touching on that a little bit more.
Yeah. Through you, Mr. Mayor. As I said earlier, there's a huge amount of work which has gone into the development of this particular document, providing information which we have not had before. So as we move into this next phase of implementation, it's really important that the information that we've got available to us can be used and embedded into our corporate and operational policy, planning, decision making, the way we design our assets. And we're in a really fortunate position that as we are going through the process of the development of a new planning scheme, we'll be working with that team to see how the information we've got can translate into that particular document and be delivering those longer term outcomes in relation to land use planning. So an important step, and it's a step that we've got identified, to get on with, post this meeting.
Thank you.
Okay, do you want to close?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So, as people have touched on, it's been 3 years. It's a long time, a huge volume of work. I was fortunate enough to come in at the very tail end of that, so it hasn't felt too long for me. Dr. Steve Scull, I wonder if I could ask you if it would be all right if I shared a comment that you made to me earlier in the meeting. Huge volume of work, 8 phases, numerous map layers, 4 themes, 14 strategic actions and 58 tasks in this strategy. Dr. Steve Scull and I had a quick catch up just before the meeting, and he said to me that Sunshine Coast Council, with the work we've done in this coastal hazard adaptation strategy, has really set the benchmark for all of the councils across Queensland. So I'd like to congratulate your efforts, and I'd like to congratulate the council staff who were involved in that at setting such a high level for our region. This strategy will shape many decisions that council will make in the future. It will influence council's corporate and financial responsibilities, the provision of services and infrastructure, emergency response plans and land use planning and development decisions. So I just want to thank you for putting us in such a good position, and I'm very pleased to hear the amount of support from my fellow councillors in the debate. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Suarez. We'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. Well done, councillors and staff. Move on to item 8.3, the investment policy for 2021-22. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Through you. This report seeks the adoption of the investment policy to apply for the 2021-22 financial year. The local government regulations require the council prepare an investment policy annually. There's only a minor change to the existing policy, and that change relates to the removal of any reference to foreign exchange risk in completion of the Sunshine Coast broadband network. The investment policy must outline council's overall investment objectives, our risk philosophy and procedures for achieving the goals related to the investments stated in the policy. And importantly, council's overall philosophy is that priority is given to the preservation of capital invested over investment returns.
Thank you, Michael. Someone prepared to move? Councillor Hungerford, thank you. And a seconder? Councillor Coley, thank you. Would you like to open, Councillor Hungerford?
Through you, Mr Mayor, I'll do some explaining. The investment policy sets the boundaries of investment and includes the overall philosophy and strategy for investment of surplus funds, along with detailed guidelines and procedures for officers in the application of the policy. The only change to the existing policy is to remove any reference to foreign exchange risk, as this is no longer relevant since the completion of the Sunshine Coast International Broadband Network. The policy statement: the intent of this document is to outline Sunshine Coast Council's investment policy and guidelines regarding the investment of surplus funds, with the objective to maximise earnings within approved risk guidelines and to ensure the security of the funds. Council will maintain an active investment strategy with the following goals: maximise investment returns from investment activities, exceed the benchmark of the Bloomberg Australia Bond Bill Index, invest only in investments as authorised under current legislation, invest only with approved institutions, and invest to protect capital value of investments. Now, I'd like to explain surplus funds does not mean money that is sitting there and we've got no use for. It's about the monies we have in the budget each year for programs and projects. In the intervening period, we cautiously look to earn some income from those because that enhances council's ability to deliver. The investment portfolio will maintain sufficient liquidity to meet all reasonably anticipated operating cash flow requirements of council as and when they fall due. So as those programs and projects are coming through, we ensure the cash balances are there for that purpose. So this is about prudent management and trying to earn some income to enhance council's ability. And I'll put this to you, this is a very sound policy we have here, and we're doing this in the interest of our finances and the community.
Thank you, Councillor Hungerford. There are no further speakers. Do you wish to close, Councillor? We'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. Move on to item 8.4, which is the debt policy for 21-22. Thank you, Michael.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. This report seeks the adoption of the debt policy for the 21-22 financial year. Once again, the local government regulations require that Council prepare a debt policy annually. There are no changes to the existing policy, and we note that any new loans are not drawn down until late in the financial year to minimise our interest expense. The borrowing proposals remain subject to evaluation of the Department of Local Government, Racing and Multicultural Affairs, and periodic reviews are undertaken by Queensland Treasury Corporation, as I mentioned earlier. The new borrowings can only be made to fund capital expenditure for a period of less than or equal to the useful life, but no greater than 20 years. And as I mentioned, Mr Mayor, there's no changes to the existing debt policy.
Thank you. Someone to move? Councillor Hungerford. Seconder? Councillor Natoli. Thank you. Would you like to open, Councillor?
Through you, Mr Mayor. The Local Government Regulation 2012, Section 192, requires Council to prepare a debt policy annually. This policy forms part of Council's overall system of financial management as required under Section 104(5)(c)(2) of the Local Government Act 2009. Our policy requirements are very sound. Council will not utilise loan funding to finance operating activities or recurrent expenditure. Council undertakes full analysis of all funding options as outlined in the long-term financial forecast, including a forward program of capital works, to determine loan funding requirements. Council recognises that infrastructure demands placed upon Council can often only be met through borrowings, but will always be mindful of the additional costs incurred by the community when assets are acquired through borrowings, as this increases the cost of providing capital infrastructure. Council will endeavour to fund all capital renewal projects from operating cash flows and borrow only for new or upgrade capital projects having regard to the sound financial management principles and giving consideration to intergenerational equity for the funding of long-term infrastructure projects. Where capital expenditure is deferred from one year to the next, the drawdown of approved loan funds will be reviewed to minimise interest expenses. Borrowings for infrastructure that provide the opportunity for a return on assets will take priority over borrowings for other assets. This is very sound financial management, Mr Mayor, and this is a very solid policy, and I wholeheartedly endorse it.
Thank you, Councillor Hungerford. No further speakers? Do you need to close? Put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. We move to item 8.5, the revenue policy. Thank you,
Thanks
Michael.
again, Mr Mayor. Once again, this report seeks the adoption of the revenue policy for the 21-22 financial year. Local government regulations require that we include the revenue policy in the budget. We must review our revenue policy annually in sufficient time to allow the annual budget that's consistent with the revenue policy to be adopted. The revenue policy sets out the principles used by Council for levying rates and charges, granting concessions for rates and charges, recovering overdue rates and charges, and our cost recovery methods. The revenue policy has been reviewed and there's no material change to the existing revenue policy.
Thank you. Someone to move? Councillor Hungerford. Seconder? Councillor Natoli. Thank you. Please open, Councillor.
Through you, Mr Mayor. Section 1692C of the Local Government Regulation 2012 requires Council to include the budget a revenue policy. The local government must review its revenue policy annually and in sufficient time to allow an annual budget that is consistent with the revenue policy to be adopted for the next financial year. And that's the process we're in at the moment. The local government review for the next financial year. It includes levying of rates and charges, granting concessions for rates and charges, recovering overdue rates and charges, cost recovery methods. The revenue policy has been reviewed and no material changes are proposed. Now, Council levies rates and charges to fund the provision of valuable services to our community. When adopting its annual budget, Council will set rates and charges at a level that will provide for both current and future community requirements. Council will apply the principle of transparency in making the rates and charges. And that's what this policy is today. I wholeheartedly support this one. It's a very sound policy we have here as well.
Thank you, Councillor Hungerford. There are no further speakers. Sorry, Councillor Natoli.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is an incredibly important policy. Without revenue, obviously our operations would not be able to deliver the many services that we have. And it was interesting, yesterday on the ABC there was the Mayor of South Burnett facing enormous criticism and probably not rightly so because of the enormous problems that they've had with droughts. But
I'll just correct you, I think it was the North Burnett.
North Burnett?
North Burnett.
North Burnett. And obviously they've been unable to be able to stay within the revenue that they have been able to bring in. They're struggling obviously to meet the expectations and looking at closing libraries, pools, massive impact on their communities. And so a revenue policy is important, but I do want to highlight, maybe Mr. Mayor, you might like to say, I think it's time that the federal government actually understands how difficult it is for many local governments to continually deliver the high-level services that our community expect. And it shouldn't just be large councils like ours that we're probably much more fortunate because we have the ability to be able to derive revenue from a whole range of different sources other than a rate base. And I really feel for a lot of these rural communities because they are very limited in their ability to be able to do that. And so, to be sustainable, unless the federal government takes a complete new look at increasing the amount of revenue that local governments get from federal tax, I think we are going to see possibly the beginning and collapse of local governments in rural Australia. And I think even for councils like us, with the massive amount of growth that we're experiencing at the moment, our revenue is constantly under review to be able to meet the expectations of that growth, expectations of the people that expect similar services here to capital cities, and ultimately I think the federal government has to take a serious look at the sustainability of local government. The warning signs are out there now, and if they don't move now, we may start to see local governments falling over.
Thank you, Councillor Natoli. No further speakers. Would you like to close, Councillor? No need to close. We'll put the motion to vote. All those in favour? It's carried unanimously. We'll do 8.6 and then take a break. So we'll go to the Register of General Cost Recovery Fees and Commercial Charges. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We did have a presentation. Yep, there we go. Thank you. Thank you. Fees and charges. So the fees and charges are covered under Section 97 of the Local Government Act, including recording a change of ownership for land, providing information kept under the Local Government Act, seizing property or animals, and the performance of another responsibility under the Local Government Act. These fees are required to be set at equal or less than the cost of providing that service. Charges which are commercial in nature are covered in Section 263(3) of the Local Government Act. We had a budget parameter of a 2.5% increase on this year. The general cost recovery fees and commercial charges for next year have a forecast revenue of about 46 million. There's just under 1,300 fees covering 32 different areas of council. 230 of those fees are cost recovery and 1,043 are commercial. Some of the highlights: there's a new fee in place for the Pelican Waters North and South waterway lock access. There's fees established for the hiring of a podcast studio for the newly constructed Biwa meeting place. And there's been an increase in the annual lease licence and permit to occupy or management agreement fee for non-profit organisations. And this increase has been offset by council meeting the costs for water-based charges, structural refurbishments and statutory maintenance, and insurance for the buildings and infrastructure. And refer to the recommendation, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Michael, someone to move? Councillor Hungerford, thank you. Seconded, Councillor Babarowski. Please open, Councillor.
Through you, Mr Mayor. The general cost recovery fees and commercial charges revenue for 2021-22 is expected to be approximately 45.1 million. The budget fee increase parameter is 2.5%. Now, the general principle in setting general cost recovery fees and commercial charges is that the costs of services should be borne by those who benefit from them. Cost recovery fees covered under Section 97 of the Local Government Act 2009 are required to be set equal to or less than the cost of providing the service. Now, the risk is where we do not collect those at the cost of the service is the user charges do not meet the cost of providing the service. A subsidy from general rates, our ratepayers, will be required, which may risk the achievement of a balanced operating result for our budget for the financial year. And this is a very responsible policy and very fair, and I endorse it wholeheartedly.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Babarowski.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Look, I really, to some extent, just wanted to take the opportunity to remind myself and hopefully the community that if you ever thought about that really out-of-date phase, what do councils do? Roads, rates and rubbish, and it describes two services, because rates is not a service, it's the way you pay for them. Some of the statistics that were presented today are just under 1,300 fees over 32 areas. So again, it just reminds us of the complexity of an organisation, of the scale and scope of the Sunshine Coast Council. And I wanted to show my gratitude to Michael and Isaac and the staff over the 9 years that I've been getting these reports for a very really intelligent education of somebody who really had the highest confidence in this area, but I've learned to be more confident in this area through your reports. So thank you very much for your dedication, and I appreciate it. And I hope that the community is again reassured of the quality of the staff and the reporting in such complex areas. And I think again perhaps recognises that we as a council do try to be as conservative as possible on these fee parameters. And I think this is another example of that conservatism and that consideration of the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Babarowski. Do you need to Councillor Dixon?
Mr Mayor, I was just wondering if somebody could outline the discussions that we've had around the Brisbane Road car park and the fees and charges that are associated with that, because I can't recall any detailed conversation that we've had around the utilisation of the car park, free car parking on the site, 3 hours up front, 2 hours, 1 hour. But in today we've got the fees and charges. We list out the current costs for the car parking rates, yet there is a clear request continually from the community to review that. I keep getting usage rates and photos sent to me weekly where the car park just isn't getting the utilisation that we want to see. When are we going to have that debate? When is that workshop going to happen? And you know, I was just a little bit disappointed that we didn't get to that before. We are here today setting those charges again. And probably a question too to Michael, at what opportunity in the future can we actually change this? Does it have to wait for the next fees and charges adoption next year, or can council adjust this rate through the year?
Through you, Mr Mayor, the officer recommendation, Part D, is to delegate to the CEO the power to amend commercial charges throughout the year. So there are opportunities throughout the year.
Tom, would you like to address that question, please?
Through you, Mr Mayor, and Councillor, in terms of your question, so we're currently compiling all of that data and putting it into a report. We're applied for or putting together a date for a workshop to present all that information back to Council. But at the moment, the teams are compiling all of that data for exactly the issue you raised.
Mr. Mayor, through to the CEO, I'm actually really glad to hear that. So if there are people out there wanting to know what is happening in that space, the officers are already doing that work, and we do have an opportunity to actually change things. This is not the only opportunity here today. And I think that's important to say that publicly. I've had a number of people that believe this issue hasn't been addressed in the lead up to the budget, and they're fearful that we're going to be stuck where we are for another 12 months. That simply isn't true, and I look forward to that workshop.
Thank you. Councillor Landsberg.
Thank you, through the Chair. Just wanted to touch on the pontoon, the increase in pontoon charges. And we did a market review by Heron Todd White, and they've recommended to increase the meterage charge to $22.50 a metre. I've received quite a bit of feedback from, obviously, Division 2 owners in Pelican Waters, and it's quite a substantial increase. I know that's what we've reviewed, and the review came back to look at a price between $20 and $25. But doing a review of the pontoon charges once a decade, I'd like to see it reviewed more regularly, just to keep those owners of those properties on the waterways down there informed a little bit better. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Landsberg. No further speakers. Do you want to close, Councillor? No need to close. Put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. Thanks very much, Michael. I'm going to suggest we take a break now. It's 10:41. If we can be back at 10:55. We don't have a lot of items to finish, but we'll work our way through those. Thank you. Okay, councillors and our team, let's get back underway. We're up to item 8.7, which is the Development Services Register of Cost Recoveries and Commercial Charges, and I invite Patricia Jensen to give us a presentation. Thanks, Patricia.
Good morning, CEO, Mayor and councillors. As the Mayor just mentioned, I'm here today to present the proposed Development Services Cost Recovery Fees and Commercial Charges for 21-22. Firstly, I wanted to look at the development outlook that we've had over the last 12 months and going forward, what we're anticipating. Last few years, the local development market and economic conditions have been stable to high development activity. However, there is challenges in determining the anticipated development activity for the next 12 months. In the 2021 period, we have seen the introduction of a number of government incentives to support the local community and businesses with COVID economic uncertainties, which has resulted in a significant increase in development activity for the Sunshine Coast region, particularly for new lots and also for dwelling houses. Revenue for this last 12 months is anticipated at this stage to be approximately 21 million, well over our anticipated budget, approximately 2 million over. It is unknown whether this development activity will remain strong in the 21-22 period, noting that the majority of the government incentives have concluded. Taking into consideration the conclusions of these incentives and the unprecedentability of the development activity, development services revenue is forecasted to be in the vicinity of 20 million for next financial year. The proposed 21-22 register is attached to Appendix A to your report. In this report, we also have a number of other additional information to assist in the development of our fees. Attachment 1 is the comparison of the fees from this year to next financial year. Attachment 2 is the Urban Development Institute of Australia Research Foundation Sunshine Coast fees in comparison with other SEQ councils. Then attachment 3 is a targeted benchmark analysis of some specific categories that we want to look at for SEQ councils in comparison to ours. As outlined in the report, there are a number of proposed changes proposed to the fee register, including several minor format and administrative changes for ease of understanding and clarity. The more specific updated fees and charges that we've proposed in the register include our Section 116, which is our refunds. The plumbing and drainage application refunds have been amended to align with other development application refund processes and percentages. Section 2.2.2, pre-lodgement and pre-applications. The wording associated with on-site pre-lodgement meetings has been further refined to ensure clarity, and the fee has been changed from an hourly rate to a one-off fee to account for on-site meeting times and associated time travel, making the administration of this fee easier to apply for both our customers and the staff. Section 4.1.24, material change of use for businesses commercial, our tourist attraction fee, has been changed from approximately $5,000 up to $9,500 to be similar with other business and commercial fees, and to also to align with the other tourism attraction uses in this, and when we've done the benchmarking exercise with other SEQ councils. Section 13, which is our certificate searches and information, we've had a number of incremental increases that have been made to several of the fees in this section. It is noted that several of these fees have not been increased for a number of years and therefore considered reasonable and relevant to increase the fees this year. Section 13.1.13, fee retrieval. This fee has been increased to break down the fee associated with the retrievals in two categories. Files created in 2006 or older have a fee of $165 per file, and files created in 2007 or newer have a fee of $100. This breakdown is based on the fees that are hard copy versus those that are electronic. In 2021, this year, we changed our fee structure for dwelling houses and dual occupancy fees to consolidate into Section 3 of the register. This is a significant change to our fees, but since this time we've also had some suggested improvements, both noted by our staff and our customers. So we've updated these to be consistent and be more reflective of the application complexity, including minor changes, other changes and extensions of approval. In addition, after a benchmark with other South East Queensland councils, it was determined that our fees were below the average and also not reflective of the work effort that was required to process these applications, and we've updated these fees. On this basis, some of the fees have been increased slightly and new fees included. The material change use and building work fees range from $900 to about $4,200, and change application fees range from about $450 up to about $4,000. Another section that we've updated has been the wording and structure of our minor and other changes fees in Section 10. These amendments are proposed to ensure that there is sufficient fees are obtained to cover costs associated with more significant requests. Following a benchmark work with other SEQ councils, as shown in Attachment 3 of your report, it was determined that the council's fees were not consistent approaches applied by other councils. On this basis, the fees have been changed to include an option for the fee to be a percentage of the application fee, calculated as if the application was a new application, as well as imposing a minimum fee requirement. It should be noted that these fees are only applicable to the more complex change application requests, and that it will still be a minor fee for the more minor applications, ranging from about $970 to $2,750. In the fee register this year, we've only included one new fee, which is the new fee in Section 14.1.18, which is extracts and visualisation of Council's 3D model. Last year, we completed a new 3D modelling capture in partnership with the Department of Resources. So we've put in a new price on application fee to enable customers to obtain extracts of visualisation for specific development applications. This fee will align with other similar fees we apply for where other customers ask for information from council's LiDAR or spatial systems. Recommendation is that council adopt our proposed fee register for the 21-22 period.
Okay, someone prepared to move? Councillor Hungerford. Councillor Dixon, thank you. Would you like to open, Councillor?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. The 2021-22 revenue projection for Development Services Register is expected to be approximately $20 million, and that'll be subject to how the market goes with the building boom we have at the moment. How long that will last, no one knows, but it has had an impact on Development Services, because I know they've been very busy with the high range of applications coming in at the moment. So that's put pressure on the department, I know that. Managers responsible for general cost recovery fees are advised to set prices at full cost recovery where possible. The Development Services Register for Cost Recovery Fees and Commercial Charges 2021-22 will apply from the 1st of July 2021. Adopting the fees and charges prior to adopting the 2021-22 budget in full allows advance notice for applicants, the community, and provides sufficient time to update our systems before the 1st of July 2021 as we're bringing our budget down on the 24th of June. So that's the reason why we bring this forward. This is very sensible. We've got to see how we go through the next year with the development applications coming in, because I know they're significantly higher at the moment, but it will depend on the economy, and we've got to see what happens in the future. But I put this to you as very sound and responsible, and it's put out there for the applicants and the community to know what's coming beforehand.
Thank you, Councillor. No further speakers? No need to close, Councillor. Put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? It's carried unanimously. Thank you. Thank you, Patricia. Item 8.8 is the April 2021 Financial Performance Report, and I invite Isaac Pickerskill to give us a presentation. Thank you, Isaac.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good morning, all. Today I'm here to present the Financial Performance Report for April 2021. Council's results at the end of April provide a positive operating result of $70.4 million. The favourable variance consists of revenue above budget of $5.9 million and expenses below budget of $4.3 million. In terms of the detail, increase in revenue I've received additional funds from cleansing charges relating to waste collection, additional revenue for Sunshine Coast holiday parks, and also additional revenue again from refuse tip fees and development services applications. Corporate cost savings have been realised in our materials and services budgets, also below by $2.3 million. Our Council's capital works program has progressed 67%, with $194 million expended against a $287.3 million program. Our core program is progressing $63 million as at the end of April. Our Council's total cash is $209 million for the end of April. Our debt is currently sitting at $543 million. Our Council included in the recommendation is a revised list of the minor works program, which includes a few adjustments for a range of divisions for your endorsement.
Someone to move? Councillor Hungerford? I think this is a bit of a record, absolutely, Councillor. We better get you a seconder. Someone to second? Councillor Natoli, thank you.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Another solid report, a monthly report. Council has a positive operating result of $70.4 million, which is $10.2 million above the current budget as at the 30th of April 2021. As of the 30th of April 2021, $436.5 million operating revenue has been achieved, which is $5.9 million more than the current budget for the same period. An increase in waste collection services has led to a 2.7% increase. Fees relating to Council's caravan parks are currently $2.5 million above budget. Tip fees and development services are also above budget by $2.4 million and $1.1 million. Operating grants and subsidies, unbudgeted grant funds for the Queensland Bushfire Local Economy Recovery Grant Program of $400,000. The positive variance in other revenue is due to $250,000 in recoupment of legal fees, $124,000 received in sponsorship for the Horizon Festival, and the sale of recyclables being $350,000 above budget. A very healthy position to be in. As of the 30th of April 2021, $366 million of the $370 million budget year to date has been expended, which resulted in an underspend of $4.2 million, or 1.1%. Across the whole of Council, there has been savings in corporate costs of $2 million, largely due to water and sewage, $754,000, fuel $670,000, and electricity $406,000. As of the 30th of April 2021, $194.2 million of Council's $287.3 million capital works program has been financially expended. And as we're saying, we're working hard to get that the 90% spent by the 30th of June, but it's been a very large capital program this year. The core capital program has progressed 63.2% of budget, an actual spend of 16 million. Corporate major projects progressed 89.6%, and the Sunshine Coast Airport runway project progressed 80% of their respective annual budgets. 1.2 million relining of damaged stormwater program is currently 50% complete. And as we've had before, Council's 19.6 million road servicing and rehabilitation program has progressed 81% completion in April. The reseal program and the 2.4 million bus stop replacement and installation program has progressed 82%. A very solid result for the last month, and I too look forward to us getting that 90% completed capital works by the end of June, but I do realise we've had weather impacts at the moment. We've had extra grant money come in and extra projects added, so that has been a significant challenge for our teams, but I'm sure they're up to it. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Hungerford. No further speakers to the motion. We'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? It's carried unanimously. Thank you. Thank you, Isaac. That brings us to item 8.9, which is the sale of land for arrears of rates. And I make the point that there is a confidential attachment to this report. And I just urge Councillors' caution. If we did need to address that, we would need to go into confidential session. So over to you, Michael. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. So this report has been prepared to seek Council's approval to commence the sale of land procedures where rates and charges have been overdue for at least 3 years in accordance with the local government regulations. As noted, Mr Mayor, attachment 1 contains the confidential information. In January of this year, there were 77 properties that were identified as having rates and charges overdue for at least 3 years and falling within the scope of the sale of land procedures. On the 7th of May, there were 51 properties on that list with overdue rates and charges totalling $758,000. As the sale of land procedures have moved and progressed, the number of properties with overdue rates and charges continue to reduce, and I'm happy to say that as of last night there were 44 properties now outstanding, another 7 had paid, with total rates outstanding $678,000. Of those 44 properties, 33 had a mortgage or have a mortgage. Every effort has been made to recover the outstanding rates and charges and negotiate a successful outcome for the landowners. And of those 44 that are outstanding, every single one of those bar one have been contacted personally on top of all of the information and correspondence that they have received over the last 3 years. The credit management officers work with the landowners to seek alternate avenues for financial assistance. A couple of examples are financial counsellors, offering of advice to go and see their mortgagee for any refinancing, to apply to the state government for mortgage relief loans, or apply to the Australian Taxation Office for the early release of super. Noting that the sale of land process did not occur last year due to the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic, and in 2017 there was 1 vacant property, a deceased estate with no known beneficiaries or interested parties that proceeded to an auction. The majority of properties subject to the sale of land procedures who do have a mortgage are paid out. The majority have got a mortgage, so 33 out of the 44, and in all cases we have found that where there is a mortgage over the property, that the mortgagee pays out to protect their interests. Thank you.
Somebody move. Councillor Babarowski. Seconded, Councillor Hungerford. Would you like to open, Councillor Babarowski?
But I'd just give you a break. Look, this is one of those areas that I think we have some very experienced officers. Our credit officers, as Michael described, are incredibly careful, compassionate to the degree that they need to be, but also extremely disciplined in the way that they approach this to make sure that every opportunity is offered and taken to make sure that the people understand their responsibilities I'm very pleased that we have now only 33, and as history has shown, we would expect that to decline quite significantly. So I'm very pleased to ask for your support, councillors. I think we are correctly efficient in this space, but have the right amount of compassion and commitment to making sure that everybody's individual circumstances are understood in these processes, and we have some mechanisms in place to help them to realise their responsibilities to make sure they contribute to the common pool of rates. Having said all that, well done, and I look forward to seeing this number significantly decline. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Councillor Babrowski. Councillor Hungerford.
Through you, Mr Mayor. The Local Government Regulation 2012, Chapter 4, Part 12, Division 3, provides guidance where overdue rates and charges have remained unpaid for a period of at least 3 years, and allows a local government to sell the land in which the rates are levied. The land is sold by way of public auction. There are 51 properties on the sale of land list, with the total rates outstanding of $758,633. Where overdue rates and charges have remained unpaid for a period of at least 3 years, by proceeding with the sale of land, the balance of the community will not be required to bear the financial burden of long-term rate debts. Council has a community responsibility to collect rates and charges outstanding in a timely manner to finance its operations, to carry out essential services and ensure effective cash flow management. Council is proactive in the recovery of outstanding rates and charges, and every effort has been taken to minimise the number of properties with rates outstanding for a period of at least 3 years. In March 2021, intention to sell land for arrears of rates, letters were issued to the landholders of the properties remaining on the list. This letter is not required as part of the sale of land procedures detailed in the Local Government Regulation 2012. However, this community is issued to ensure landholders are aware of the options available to them, including entering into an approved rate payment plan. Every effort has been made to recover the outstanding rates and charges and negotiate a successful outcome for landowners. Where a desirable outcome has not been achieved by this preceding action, credit management officers have advised landholders of alternative avenues to seek financial assistance through a financial counsellor to discuss other options that may be available, the mortgagee regarding refinancing, apply to the state government for a mortgage relief loan, and to apply for the Australian Taxation Office for early release of superannuation. We're taking all these steps to help people. The letters and subsequent actions have resulted in 26 properties being removed from the sale of land process for the period between January 2021 and compilation of the sale of land list on the 7th of May 2021. By proceeding with this action, the balance of the community will not be required to bear the financial burden of any long-term rate debts, and we still reach out to those people to help them manage, and we don't really want to take it to sale of their properties, but this is a responsibility we have to the wider community, and we do that with compassion and understanding, and we try to eliminate as many of those as possible we can. But at the end of the day, sometimes, unfortunately, some do have to go to sale. It's not something we enjoy as a council doing, but it's a core responsibility.
Thank you, Councillor Hungerford. No further speakers. Do you need to close, Councillor Babrowski? No. We'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? It's carried unanimously. Thank you. Thank you, Michael. Councillors, just in wrapping up this meeting, I again remind you that this is Reconciliation Week, and the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander flag is flying at Nambour and Caloundra. And I thank you for the decision you agreed to last week. And on June 1, the rainbow flag will be flying on our flagpoles as well to highlight Pride Month. So on that note, I'll close the meeting.